The internet's in shambles over Kyren Williams because he was listed as the punt returner to at least start the season. We're going to talk about Blake Corum. We're going to talk about his touches going forward. We're going to listen to what Sean McVay has to say about this situation. We're going to analyze the coach speak of that to see what's going on with that. How much is he going to be impacted? And we're going to theorize over the Kyren Williams situation, since the internet is blowing up about it. But before we dig in, you need to click that subscribe button right now, because we're talking about these players every day. We will look at the coach speak. We will look at the advanced metrics. We'll deep dive these players every day, multiple times a day. Guys off waivers, guys with a change in situation, kind of like what we're doing right now, and everything in between. Click that button. Stop missing out. The Kyren Williams coach speak. We're going to look at that right now. See what Sean McVay has to say about Kyren Williams.
Zach Thomas and Xavier Smith seem to be two guys that performed well with their opportunities. What was the rationale for not having them on the 53, and what were kind of some of the other tough decisions that you had to make with that roster?
Yeah, those were two tough decisions. You mentioned it. I thought, starting with X, thought he did a really good job, continuing to improve. The thing I think he can be proud of is he's really improved. He's done a really good job. I thought he showed well in terms of his decision making, his ability to field punts. Kyren Williams is going to be our punt returner, and it's another opportunity for him to get touches and impact the game, and you feel comfortable with that because of the confidence in Blake Corum and Ronnie Rivers, being able to spell him if need be. So that was what has made it tough for X. He didn't do anything not to win the punt return job. It's just, Kyren is a guy that you want to continue to have different ways that he can impact the game, and that's one that's going to be reflected.
There's a lot to unpack there. They want to keep getting Kyren Williams the ball any way, shape, or form, including punt returns. However, when it comes back to the ball on offense, are they going to spell him right away? Or are they going to spell him a little bit later? Is he going to get spelled more often? When we look at Blake Corum, a damn good running back. However, what I'm gathering there is they want the ball in Kyren Williams' hands as much as possible. But how much is as much as possible for Kyren Williams? Because we saw him break down last year after a huge workload. And they said during that time when he was out, they were going to try and dial it back. But the jabronis there wasn't able to get the job done at the running back position when he was out. So they continued to get him carries. So what would the scale back be if Blake Corum plays to what we know he can play to when he was at Michigan, which is going to be very interesting here? Is this going to be a spell job where Blake Corum's starting to siphon touches? Or are they going to run Kyren Williams into the ground and just bring in Blake Corum? Looking at opportunity share last year, he was one of the top running backs in opportunity with a 37% opportunity share, which is very high up there, especially certain moments of the season. One that tops in the leagues, and that's rushing attempts and targets tallied together. The ownership of that, and just Josh Jacobs, Saquon Barkley, and Christian McCaffrey was ahead of him when it comes to rushing attempts and targets. And then when you're looking at opportunity share per game for Kyren Williams, there's just some moments where it was just very high, 29, 30, over 20 most of his games, which is higher than a lot of running backs. And what really buoyed it was weeks 13, 14, and 15, where he was getting more than 25 opportunities, touches, and targets in a game. And then you look at the production here, Royce Freeman, who just got cut by the Cowboys, Darrell Henderson, Cam Akers. They weren't getting it done. Akers got traded early, but Kyren Williams just had to be the man there. They wanted another running back. They got another running back. But Kyren Williams was very efficient and very dependable with the football. And as we know, he got the workload and was one of the most productive running backs in fantasy football. But comes Blake Corum, one of the most NFL-ready running backs in the 2024 NFL draft class. Good size, adjusted athleticism, good production to his name. You watch the tape, he stands out. And he's got a lot of similarities to Kyren Williams, as they're both lunch pail running backs. Good between the tackles, good in pass pro, good catching the ball in the backfield. Very gritty running backs. And his 2022 season, his 2023 season, he's ramping up from the injury from the end of 2022 when he hurt his knee. And then the back end of 2023 is when you start to see the best of Blake Corum. But if you want to look at Blake Corum at his best, you look at 2022, one of the most productive rushers in college football, top 7 among Power 5 running backs back in 22 in rushing yards. Yards after contact per attempt back then, 3.35. Created 73 missed tackles, and that's what you get out of a Blake Corum. A guy that can carry the workload, a guy that can make you miss, a guy that can run through you. Very gritty between the tackles, 5.9 yards per attempt on the season, 18 touchdowns. This was his huge season. And then when you look at the ADP here, Kyren Williams is still very expensive. However, the gap between him and Blake Corum is pretty vast, where if you're drafting Kyren Williams and you're somewhat worried about this, or if you're just objectively kind of smart here, you're picking up Blake Corum. You're maybe paying a little bit of a premium, maybe getting him a little round earlier than what you're thinking of, because Blake Corum steps in this offense, and he can be rather potent for fantasy football, rather productive. And the fact is, what McVay said in that interview, if you come to think about it, is that he's looking good enough where they can move Kyren to punt returns, allow him to do more duties, and allow them to make other roster moves for other positions to allow him to do so, and Blake Corum can spell a little bit more. So Blake Corum's already earning more workload than what some people would think, but given his production profile, what we saw on tape and everything coming out of college, it's not really a surprise. One thing you could really say about this is that they believe Kyren Williams is very dependable, where if they feel like they can make some roster moves to do something else to give them flexibility, they're going to slide Kyren Williams over, and that's what they evidently did. That is something they just didn't have last year. They did not have anybody they could rely on. Maybe we come in season, and maybe Blake Corum makes a mistake or something, and they peel Kyren Williams back. Maybe a few days from now, they move some guys around, and all of a sudden, Kyren Williams is not returning punts anymore. That's one thing to look at here. But one thing we could probably say here, they're going to use Kyren Williams until the wheels fall off. But a lot of times in fantasy football, the punt return workload is rather worthless for your fantasy points for your team. However, Kyren Williams is very dependable, and they have demonstrated that they believe he's dependable throughout the years, pretty much with this move, so he's still going to get workload. Another thing to point to, though, Blake Corum, I know they mentioned Ronnie Rivers, but Ronnie Rivers didn't really step up last year. Blake Corum has the upside to eat into this workload, and when the wheels do fall off for Kyren Williams, just step on in and take over. So the thing about this backfield and the way I look at it, it's not really changing how I felt. Kyren Williams is still going to get a large workload, but it should scale back a little bit. They made this draft pick in April to scale it back a little bit. They said it in season last year. I had the videos. I did the same thing. They wanted to scale it back to a degree last year. They couldn't do it due to what they have. Now they got a talent here with Blake Corum. They can do that right now. That's not a testament that Blake Corum's going to steal the job, but he might steal a certain percentage of carries. And that is the question that we got to ask ourselves. How many carries is Blake Corum going to siphon? Could that hit double-digit opportunities? Touches, targets. Could that hit that? Could he see 10 opportunities in a game? Kyren gets like 18. That will significantly impact his production while he's still getting a good workload NFL-wise. Dropping back in the rankings a little bit, but he can still be productive for your fantasy team. That seems very realistic because there was games where he was getting like 26, 27 opportunities, 22 to 26, somewhere in that range. Sometimes 30. There was that one game with 30. But say you got 25 opportunities that was going to Kyren Williams. Say 10 of those go to Blake Corum. And say Kyren Williams, considering there was other opportunities going to other running backs, gets like 18, 19, 20-ish. Maybe he's averaging 18 to 19, 20 range. Are you happy with that workload? And then when the wheels fall off, Blake Corum is going to step in and look good because he's a damn good running back. If not, you need to go back and watch his Michigan games. Not the tapes, not the highlights, the games. Watch him work between the tackles. Watch how efficient he is at all phases. He's a lunch pail running back. There's going to be a lot of questions about this offense going into the season. Kyren Williams will get work. And like we said, it is going to be scaled back a little bit. They've been saying they wanted to scale it back a little bit because they don't want him hurt. They don't want him breaking down. They don't want that to happen. But again, they may just throw caution to the wind and not care. And just let him return punts. Let him run into the ground and just bring in Blake Corum. They'll have Blake Corum spelling some. But they may just run him to the ground. And Blake Corum comes in and be's the guy. Run him into the ground too, or have them work interchangeably after that once Kyren Williams comes back. But the fact is, Blake Corum, from what we just heard from Sean McVay, is really asserting himself as a piece of this offense because they would not be able to use Kyren Williams as a punt returner and feel good about that if they would not be able to do so. On top of that, they view Kyren Williams as a very reliable piece of their offense, piece of their team, and they can move him around, have him do different things because they know he will get the job done. Let me know what you think in the comments below. Make sure to hit that subscribe button on the way out. One thing for watching. Catch you on the next video.